welcome to another episode of the Network Buzz, a Laketec podcast. I'm your host, Mike Trappy, as we bring you some technical training and awareness to all that who listen, all few of you who listen. Hopefully we got a growing foundation going here. Thank you to those who have checked us out so far. Very much appreciate that. Have not gotten any comments yet. I encourage comments. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what we can do better, and supply some, ideas, things that we could dive into here further. I know we've gone down the network fabric so far and talked about that. We've done some Wi-Fi stuff and some other awareness type of conversations, but we're looking for more. So please give that feedback whenever you get a chance. And today we're going to talk about go down the network security path a little bit and talk about what is SASE. The Secure Access Service Edge, because acronyms do kill people, everybody. We got to talk about those things. So John Speigel, Field CTO, covering everything SASE for HPE Aruba Networks. Thank you very much for joining us, John. How are you?
Hey, glad to be here. Excited to spend some time with you, talk SASE, get sassy, and we'll talk a little SSE and Zero Trust as well.
Yes, we'll dive into that. I've, of course, in the office, you have to make the sassy joke. Someone did that. I wasn't going to do it. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
I'll step on that grenade for you.
Thank you very much, John. And I'm very excited because this is the first time we're going to dive into the real meaning of why we call it the Network Buzz. We wanted to do something where, we're a couple of beer drinkers here on this today. So we wanted to talk about, what we're drinking today. And John, what do you got in your glass today?
So today, it's in a can, actually. This is the Windmere Burr. It's a seasonal IPA from Windmere. I've been drinking this one, I'm going to say going on about 14 years. So Windmere blesses us with this one right around the November timeframe. So comes out. It is an incredible beer. It's a red with a little bit of kind of a candy finish. There's a little... it's just a really nice drinking beer. Although
peppermint candy cane finish. What do you mean by candy cane?
A little bit of a candy cane at the end, which is kind of surprising. Not sure how they're doing it or what hops they're putting into it. But it does have a bit of a kick. It's a 7% plus beer, so it's not like you can sit down and drink a 6-pack of this. This is maybe about 3, and you're doing pretty good. So it's a solid beer.
There you go. So they're local holiday beer there. That's nice. Exactly. A red ale, you said too?
I would classify it as a red ale.
Okay, good. I'll beer nerd out with you. Yeah, I decided to go down. I know you were just in Boston, and I'm an IPA guy, so I got the Treehouse Green.
Oh, nice.
It's one of their really good ones. I mean, there's nothing bad from Treehouse if you've ever been out there. They got a couple locations out there in Massachusetts where I actually have family near Cape Cod-ish around there, so I make that trip. And we got to the point now where I bring a cooler in the car for that road trip with 2 kids, and there's nothing in that cooler. I'm just going to fill that cooler and then bring it home. So I have to negotiate for that spot in the trunk with the cooler that has nothing in it. That's going to have something in it in the car. But yeah, 7.5% American IPA, your hazy IPA, if you will. I mean, that's my jam, going down the hazy IPA path. There's no wrong season for that, to tell you the truth.
Absolutely.
So, good stuff. So I'm going to have a beer with my friend John here, and we're going to talk about SASE a little bit. So real quick, John, I just want to talk about you real quick so we can kind of understand, where have you been, your kind of professional timeline, and just talk about, yourself a little bit, if you could, for everybody here.
Yeah, I don't know how far back you want to go, because, you can go pretty deep into the whole origin story of how I got here. Quick aside, or a quick mention of this. I'm a child of the Cold War. My father was in the military, so I grew up on, remote military bases as a kid. My goal in life as a young kid was to be a fighter pilot. I think I watched too many TV shows back in the day. I think there was Black Sheep Squadron, flying the Corsairs, and being around the military. You see the fast jets.
Top Gun there too. Don't forget.
Yeah, Top Gun. That inspired a whole generation of carrier pilots. But quickly I realized I had some challenges seen. So my days of fighter pilot was very short. But continued that and had developed a strong love for history, love for geopolitics. So went down that path. Obviously, the Cold War came to an end in 1989, and a path into politics. I quickly learned that was feast or famine, so did a number of odd jobs. And
Senator Spiegel's never to be
Senator
had, huh?
Speigel,
Yeah.
you never know. If I
Got a
win the
ring to
lottery,
it.
if I win the lottery, maybe we can pursue that and have some fun there. It takes a lot of money to do one of those jobs, but and some thick skin as well. But at the end of the day, I kind of decided I wanted a job that constantly changing, constantly challenging me. Something that just every day was a little bit different, and happened to fall into an opportunity to kind of jump into IT. Took some night courses, and then came home one day and told my wife, "Hey, I'm going full Cortez here. I am going to essentially leave my job, burn the ships, and head off to IT Island." Got
Rip the
lucky.
Band-Aid and just go, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That lasted about 2 to 3 weeks so of unemployment, which was fun, but found a job with a consulting firm that basically took me all around the United States, working in paper plants, box plants, doing upgrades, those types of things, and got exposed to, server administration, upgrades, all of the facets that go along with that. But also started to notice that there was another aspect to IT that kind of got me very curious, and that was all the network wires and the devices that hooked them up. So fell in deep on the networking side, pursued all the Cisco certs, got up to, let's see, the written CCIE, so I passed that. Never took the lab, but really fell into a love of networking. And then moved on to another job with a local company here in Portland, Oregon, global retailer, Columbia Sportswear. Started off as the person running their wide area network at the time. It was about 35 locations across the globe. Took that and parlayed that into running the entire networking team, and then eventually ran all of the infrastructure team for that company. So anything with a blinky light that I say that's physical or virtual fell under my purview there. That allowed me to build out teams, which I really enjoyed, bringing people together, having them work on large challenges, dealing with the KTLO, how we could unburden the company from the keep the lights on activity, focus on revenue generating projects, and reducing risk. But I also had an opportunity to work with a few startups, few of them that became rather large. Palo Alto Networks was one of them. I was very early on in the next generation firewall area. Just a little, yes.
Anymore.
Not so little anymore. Another company got bought by VMware, so the NSX product, I had an opportunity to work with them, and then one of the SD-WAN startups too. So that grew into a kind of a curiosity around innovation, around startups, and what they could do, and how they go to market, build a product, so on and so forth. And then eventually dipped my toe into that and started off with a company called Axis Security. So that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, I mean, again, network and security come together. I mean, that's the
Absolutely.
theme of what's happening, which we're going to obviously touch on a bunch here today. But yeah, I mean, that's rich history. It's a lot. The experiences you've had of small companies and large companies, and you kind of build it up and then reset and build it up and reset. Like, it's an interesting journey that you have with a lot of networking and security experience. So that's great stuff. And now in your role over there at HPE Aruba Networking is handling the SASE platform. So we're going to dive into that. And talk about just network security as a whole. But let's talk SASE for a minute. Like, what is SASE? And just walk us down like kind of the product platform of why it exists right now, why it's, I don't want to call it a trend, but it's almost a need right now. So go ahead and take the chain there.
Yeah, the SASE really evolved out of some challenges that we saw in the 2010s, primarily with distributed applications. So applications previously, up to about 2010, lived primarily in the data center. Back in my old days running infrastructure teams, We built out those platforms, hosted them within our data center, protected them with firewalls and other security mechanisms from various vendors. But it was a very much a walled garden. We controlled that territory. 2010s with the advent of cloud really changed that, and we saw the rise of SaaS applications, Workday, Salesforce, kind of the two big ones, O365 as well, and as well as applications hosted in AWS, Azure, so on and so forth, PaaS applications as well. And this really kind of broke down the old model where everything was centralized within a data center. As a result, we saw the rise of a technology called software-defined WAN. Various companies got involved in that space. One that was acquired by HPE Silver Peak, now EdgeConnect, one of the major players in that space, and several others. But the challenge there was, hey, great for providing connectivity back to the data center or to the cloud. You could leverage private lines, private IPLs connected to the internet, broadband, even satellite connectivity, even your traditional MPLS, all worked with that incredible technology called SD-WAN. The challenge was, how do you secure it? How do you secure SD-WAN? Do you route all that traffic back to the data center, have it sanitized there? Do you send it to the cloud and a firewall in the cloud, essentially, have it sanitized there? A regional data center, so on and so forth, or do you just put another firewall in place, kind of a bump in the wire? None of those
and all
solutions.
The factors that go into that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, the decisions that companies got to make, how they architect that. It's not just one size fits all.
Exactly. Cost, performance was also a challenge. And that led to
regulation.
Exactly.
I mean, like you're working for a government agency, you're working for a public university, or you're working for a private corporation. It's all different. Yeah.
Yeah. And that led to Gartner starting to rethink the problem and really kind of centering on how do we overcome this traditional dilemma that we see of choosing speed or security when you're deploying a new application. And that really came into the focus with cloud, because now we're sending traffic back to a data center, have it sanitized, and then back out to the internet, slowing everything down. And what they felt like is, hey, why don't we take the technologies that are doing the security mechanisms traditionally within the data center, reconstitute these point products, could be a VPN concentrator, a firewall, IDS, DDoS, so on and so forth, SSL, decryptors, those types of things. Take what was a previously a point product, wrapped in a sheet metal box, transform them into software, and then place them into points of presence out on the edge of the network. And they thought by doing so, you could overcome that dilemma of speed versus security, because you're placing those security services as close as possible to the user, to the application. And that fundamentally is what SASE is about. It's about overcoming that dilemma of speed and security, so we can help our employees, our customers of IT, really gain the performance that they need, but also secure them in the way that is really proper for this decade of the 2020s. And we haven't even gotten into the change of remote work as well, which surprisingly they designed for, but didn't know that was coming in 2020.
Right. And that's, again, you mentioned how many different pieces and parts that are involved in that speed versus security. I mean, how many things did you just mention there? I can't name them back. I'm sorry, I'm not that smart. But I can name like 4 or 5 different things that are needed along that path to provide that speed and or security. And you got to make a choice, like everything else, on-prem or cloud and everything that goes with it. That's interesting. So going down that path, I guess rewind a little bit, because we talked about the on-prem and going cloud, and everybody decided to go away from on-prem and go more cloud, or go utilizing software-defined networking security in that path. And VPN was a lot of that's utilization for that, to provide that private network tunnel then. But that's going away as well. Like what's the bad part about that we need to talk about a little more?
Oh, sure. VPNs, I call them the hero of COVID, because here's a technology that was born in, I think it was 1996, primarily by Microsoft, and really was leveraged as a tool to at the end of the day at that time to allow remote IT workers to get in and work on their equipment, or that rare instance where you had somebody working from home, and that was kind of the technology that we saw in the 2000s and into the 2010s. The challenge with it is it connects that device directly to the network with hardly any, maybe some security mechanisms associated with it, but not a whole lot. You may use a NAC-like tool to investigate that device, maybe establish a certain state of that device. But in terms of security, like firewalling or preventing lateral access movement within that network, there really wasn't much that a classical VPN type device would do. So it's really, you're extending your network to a device that you may or may not know what's behind it. You may or may not know that there's other people that have other work or devices, and you think about all the devices in your home and whether they're secure or not. That's a lot to ask for a company. So why does VPN need to go away? Because it allows overprivileged access directly on your network. You can see a lot more. If you need access to, say, 20 applications, you may, just because of the way your device is connected up to, be able to roam around the network and have access, or see maybe it's 100 different applications, and that's why we're seeing the rise of these other replacement tooling technologies such as ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, which essentially gives you access to only the things that you need. So if you need access to those 20 applications, that's all you get. And that's all that you see. Or 3 applications.
Yeah, just a couple of
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're a third party and you have a lawyer that needs to come onto your network and do
guest
some
access.
work,
Yeah.
Guest access, they might need access to maybe 1 or 2 applications. So why are you giving them access to 100, 1,000 applications or your entire network? That's very risky for a business.
Yeah, and I mean, staff, and again, going back to education being my realm of expertise, at least in the IT field, staff and students, though, like, can you utilize this for students to give, say, you assign a license? I assume it's a license that you would then just assign a user, and you then give them a certain amount of access to X, Y applications. Can you do that for students and then be
Absolutely.
onboarding, offboarding devices? Can it make that easy?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the other aspects of what SASE looked to do is, how do we simplify IT? How do we simplify providing access to applications? If you think about it, in the past, we talked about the multiple tools, the multiple solutions. How do you manage policy across 5 different tools that are bespoke and have their own UI and maybe from different vendors? It creates a lot of complexity. What SASE looks to do is give you that single interface, or a limited number of interfaces, UIs to work with, and do it in a very simple way. Kind of, if you're familiar with software-defined WAN, the concept is very similar. So simplifying that, and that's a great method to onboard your students or employees, so on and so forth. But really, where it comes into play, and especially in a higher education realm, is research. If you've got research going on and you need access to X, Y, and Z to do your research, you can provision the system to only give access to those areas that they need to get to, or those applications, or that database that they need to get to. So we've done some work and had some success in that realm as well.
And that's important. I mean, costs may come into play per license, what have you. I mean, there's always that. But the time that's spent, I mean, just onboarding and offboarding students on devices, things like that. I mean, you can weigh the good and bad of that whole situation. But that's just something I hear about all the time is, what are you spending your time doing? Oh, I'm going to clean off a Chromebook, clean out a Chromebook and hand it off, get it ready for another student. I'm like, and that takes like their entire summer to do, 500 of those. And it's like, geez, oh man.
Oh, yeah.
There's got to be a better way to do this.
Great scenarios. We have a customer of ours, probably you'd say a Fortune 50 customer that you probably have in your bathroom that you use on a regular basis. Some of the products that they have, their challenge is they had contractors coming on and off their network, and the provisioning process for that was taking upwards of almost a month. So from the time that you said, hey, we're going to hire that resource till the time that IT could get them something to work with and get on the network, 30 days. Crazy. And they were shipping out laptops on a regular basis. And, your comment there about Chromebooks, they were doing the same thing. And we helped them out, talked to them about our agentless approach, and moved them on to that solution. They got down to they could provision users, these new contractors, within roughly 24 hours. So, and give them access to the applications they needed and only the applications they needed with visibility. So those are the types of things you can do with these new technologies.
Yep, secure, ease of access,
Exactly.
user experience, keywords you hear from everything in networking nowadays, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the name of the game across the board. Good stuff. Do you want to dive into the nuts and bolts a little bit, just real quick, about just how SASE, how SSE, and how it supplies that faster connection, like we talked about, speed and security? I mean, I know you're going to throw more acronyms at me that I'm not going to understand. So, but we can at least somebody listening will.
Soup. Yeah.
Somebody will, like, your CASB and your SWIG. I mean, I know you're going to talk about those things. So go right ahead. Just a quick overview of the nuts and bolts, because I'll have this conversation with a university, director of infrastructure, what have you, and they'll just say they not understand it and just hear another acronym, and then they're relying on the sales guys sitting at a lunch table to describe this to them, and I'm not very good at it yet. So help me out here.
Yeah. So really, I mean, if you're cutting it down to the most basic level, like I said, it's about delivering an application with speed and security. And the mechanisms it uses, SASE has two components. On one side, network access, which is primarily driven by software-defined WAN. And this is that ability to essentially create an overlay network that's constructed of multiple methodologies to gain wide area network access. Could include MPLS, traditional MPLS, could include a broadband line, so on and so forth. It also includes things like WAN optimization. So WAN or protocols that are useful on the local area network sometimes break down over a wide area network. So we have some techniques that we can speed them up or alleviate some of the challenges. DDoS protection may fit into that as well. So kind of that wide area network realm of technologies, and that's one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin are the security toolings that you mentioned and gave some references to.
Primarily, good for a reference or two. That's about it. So
yeah. So primarily driven by ZTNA. ZTNA is a replacement for remote access. Traditional VPN gives you that one-to-one application access. So zero trust network access. That's primarily to replace VPN. We will see that eventually extend into the LAN, to the campus network, but we can talk about that later. The other one that you'll hear a lot about is Secure Web Gateway. What Secure Web Gateway does, essentially, call it a firewall in the cloud that sanitizes your traffic going to the internet. So it's doing the inspection of traditional web protocols, doing some deep inspection to see if there's a malware, is there some sort of compromise, anything, and you can do some filtering as well on that. SSL inspection is included in that. The other pillar is Cloud Access Security Broker. And what that does is it controls your SaaS applications. This can be either inline or out of band. And when we talk about out of band, we're talking more API based. So O365, Salesforce tends to play in that area. DLP also comes along for the ride. So the ability to protect your key secrets of a company, inspect, are files being transferred up to the internet, to Dropbox or not, and should that be allowed to happen. And then another technology that we like to talk about, and this is honestly, from an operational perspective, one of my favorite, digital experience monitoring. So that has the ability to inspect that traffic, understand how an application is performing. Is it slow? Is it fast? And then be able to point out to where that challenge is happening. Is it the device? Does the device have some CPU runaway processes? Is it the Wi-Fi? Is it the middle mile of the traffic over the network? Or is it the application? So instead of having to bring everybody into a room and decide, where the problem is and take hours and hours and hours. You can get it graphically in an interface. Those are the primary kind of technologies that you'll be dealing with in a SASE scenario.
Yeah, more engineering time. Similar theme, right? It's
Yeah.
how much time can you figure out, troubleshoot, or if you have this product, this interface where it consolidates all that and makes the security process just simpler to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're taking a lot of what were previously point products, reconstituting them as software, bringing them together as a platform, a unified platform that works together. So therefore, you make the burden on the IT administrator a lot easier. You don't have to employ the CCIE level type engineers, what I call the level 4 engineers for each one of these point products. You can actually get it down to a level where maybe it's a level 2 engineer, maybe it's even an operations person that's doing the day-to-day care and feeding of the system. So simplifying your IT estate is certainly one of the objectives of the SASE framework.
Without sacrificing security, right? At the same
Absolutely.
time.
I would argue you get a greater level of security, because if I have to stitch together a number of point products, each one with a bespoke UI, each one with a different type of policy, each one looking at identity in a different way, so on and so forth. And I have to write policy for each one of those. I'm going to probably make a mistake here and there, either because I don't have enough time to learn
Human
that
error,
tool.
just natural, right? I mean,
Yeah. Or I don't have time to learn that tool, or human error is more commonly the reason there.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for walking through that. I appreciate that. And I'm just trying to think what else. I mean, I know this is a lot came down. You mentioned COVID, you mentioned remote workers. That's where a lot of this came from, accessing cloud applications from, someone's home, whatever. But obviously nowadays there's a lot of return to the office going on.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about just like, is this still a shift that's has many applications to it, or does it go away with remote workers not being as plentiful, or does it help you? I mean, and we talked about recruitment a little bit yesterday when we discussed, so there's a lot of facets to it, but talk to me about how SSC or SASE is being affected by the return to office being more common right now.
Yeah, so kind of what we're seeing in the industry, especially when I go talking with customers, prospects, is this mandate around return to work or hybrid, depending on the point of view of the company. Basically, what they're looking for is flexibility at the end of the day. They know that asking your employees to return to work is going to be a challenge, especially for your A players, your prized talent. Because if I think about, in my case, 2010s, if I was looking for a job, where was I looking for a job? I was probably somewhere within, 3 or 4 zip codes of my area. So within 20 miles, 25 miles was where I was going to work. Today, I can work pretty much anywhere within North America, maybe even global to a certain extent. I worked for an Israeli company successfully from the United States. So that need for hybrid work, I think, is going to continue, especially for the top talent, because companies want top talent. Anyway, so hybrid work,
the flexibility, you named it right away.
Flexibility too is a key aspect of it. If you give that to an employee for 2 years, they're not really going to want to give it up. It's going to be really hard. You're going to have to convince them in some form or fashion. And that's why we see companies, return to work really means 2 to 3 days on site, and then 2 to 3 days remote. And I think that's kind of where we're headed. So what does that mean for SASE? What does that mean for ZTNA? Kind of how I see it is, as I explained, SASE was really this collection of SD-WAN and some networking technologies, and then this security mechanism really focused on remote access. As we talk more and more with Gartner and as we kind of talk about the future, what we're seeing is kind of an evolution where SASE starts to extend into the campus, into the branch, so that ZTNA technology starts to move in and really become that security layer within the LAN, within the campus network as well. So when you saw traditional NAC solutions, I think we're going to see them starting to morph into this concept that we call universal ZTNA, And the idea there is that we declare policy once, and that policy follows that employee, the student, whoever it may be, that resource from, when they start their day. Maybe it's at the kitchen table, they travel to the cafe, they go to the campus or branch, and then, in their day at home. That policy that we declare once will follow them through and secure them and provide them same access with security throughout the day. And I think that's really where we're headed long term.
Yeah, universal NAC. That's interesting. Because nowadays, at least in our experience, in our ClearPass deployments that we do all over the place, that's it's always internal NAC, but when you get outside the environment, then that changes. So that's an interesting terminology, and I'm not smart enough to talk about all the bells and whistles that would need to be addressed during that process, but that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're headed. If you attended our HPE Discover events in the summer, we talked a little bit about it there. You'll hear a lot more about it in 2025. There's some other aspects that we've been working on. Coffee shop networking. I don't know if you've heard that term, but the idea is basically to simplify the branch and the campus office, really make it easy for somebody to go on site, connect into the network, but leverage the goodness of what we saw with ZTNA, again, using the same sort of technology, but allowing them to work at the campus or branch with easy access and primarily internet-oriented access out to the internet. So
you shouldn't go to your local Starbucks and
join the
open guest network and VPN in. That's not secure.
If you're using a good ZTNA technology, it's as safe as it can be. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Good stuff. Anything else you want to add? I think that's a list of things that I think that we wanted to address. But is there anything I'm missing or anything I forgot about here today?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well. We've covered SASE. I think the other aspect is zero trust. It's a technology, or it's a framework that a lot of people are talking about. Mm-hmm. I see it as one of the top in looking at what people are talking about in 2025. Zero trust comes up again and again and again. So I think the most important thing to remember there on that front is that's really a strategy. It's not a technology. Right. One tool, one vendor won't solve all your problems. When you start to think about zero trust, think about it as a strategy, and it will take multiple tools and time really to start to implement some of those principles. So as you're entering 2025, start to think about that as a strategy and really look at how it applies to your company, your business.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, John, I really appreciate you joining us here today. I want to keep you past 35 minutes that we got going, I think, here. But thank you so much for taking the time, your busy schedule and all your travel plans and whatnot. So I really, really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Yeah, hope to talk to you soon here.
Looking forward to it. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for listening to Network Buzz, everybody. Feel free to reach out if any additional questions. And look forward to seeing future episodes and comments. Please comment. Thanks, everybody. Take care.